Welcome everyone to the first episode of Angertalk, the Splendid Monologues. This is going to be something that we're going to try to randomly keep up on through the future, just to kind of give people some insight on what's going on, and to give us a little bit of time to just sit around and bullshit amongst each other and maybe answer a few questions that seem to be lingering out there from time to time. We thought there's probably no better time than the present to do this, with this being the anniversary of our album Define Apostate. So got a few topics we're going to talk about today, and we're just going to kind of group chat it. I would think about it more as a conversation as opposed to any type of interview situation. We're just going to sit around and give our feelings on some of the things that we've done, what's got us up to this point, between Divine to now, and even maybe a little bit of the leap between Splendid to Divine. There's been a lot of changes in this band, and I think let's just give you a little bit of insight on what we're doing. So I would think a good place to start with that is, as I stated, the transition we had as a unit, both musically and directionally, from our first album to our second album. And what brought on a lot of the changes, and I think a lot of it was, the first album, we had a good mindset and goal and where we wanted to go. And then once we got there, it was great, except I think we found we were just capable of a little bit more exploration than that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we set out the goal. If anybody listens to the first record, it was 100% Swedish death worship. And I mean, what better to use than the producer who did Left Hand Path, Claddenstein? It was pretty obvious.
I think it kind of felt like the first album was a gigantic bucket list,
right?
To a degree, like something we all wanted to do for a very long time. And then we had the opportunity to exercise it, and we went all in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seem to start our bucket list. We've developed this bucket list through time here for Angerot, and that was bucket list number one, I think, was to work with Tomas Skogsberg from the famous Sunlight Studios, like Bill said, Entombed. One of my personal favorites, Grave. You'll Never See. He did that album, and sonically, I think it's amazing. So that for me was that was our first kind of escalation into the band. And then, the Divine brought many changes.
A lot of changes.
Many changes. Producers, drummers, direction. So
yeah, I think it's just the confidence in it was so much different, knowing that we can do it and we can get this stuff done and we can get these relationships outside of the band in place. Like writing the material is just a start. So getting to that point where you can exercise these things on vinyl or, as a finished product, with all the third-party hands that have to be involved that actually help make the album what it is.
Right. We did it.
Yeah.
Like we did it once. Well, let's do this again. But then leading into this album and even the third, I mean, obviously losing Josh, who moved, wasn't anything nefarious going on. He moved.
Yep.
So we have to find a drummer. And before we do that, we have 2 albums worth of material written.
Right.
Yeah.
And anyone who doesn't play in a band has to understand that losing a drummer is like kind of losing your heart to a certain degree. Transplanting, it's possible, but it's not going to be enjoyable. And it just seems like the running ailment that we have, being as isolated as we are. So transitioning from Josh to a new drummer, Matt, for the twin albums as they are.
Yeah, he came in and had to take on quite a bit right away.
Yeah.
I mean, you're learning 2 albums worth of material in weeks.
Pretty much threw them in the grinder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we rehearsed those songs, all of those songs, in a crash course. I don't remember if we had studio time set when he joined the band, but it pretty much kind of was, if I remember right. Like, okay, we got...
The date was set.
Yeah, the date was set. I think it was, we had 14 songs at that point. And I mean, I think each album, I want to say, has 8 songs. When I say each album, I'm talking about the Divine Apostate and the Profound Recreant that he played on. So yeah, he had a big crash course learning 14 songs of death metal drumming, with, is not an easy task for anybody.
No,
So that was his first
I'm
step
glad
in
it
the
wasn't
band.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Well, and the fact he recorded both albums worth of material in what, 2 days?
just 2
think
days.
it
It was
3
2
days.
days. It was
Yeah.
over a weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is crazy.
yeah.
And then
I think he just went home and slept.
yeah,
But I mean, it was definitely a crash. And then that's why we'll always refer to those albums as the twins, basically, or the sister albums.
absolutely.
Is everything started at the same time, and it which is a good and bad thing. I mean, it was great because then you have a course plotted for X amount of time, but it was kind of sad because then it really limited our writing process for the next 2 years.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
which you don't feel creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big gap in there. So it was like when we finally started writing again, I don't know how long it was, but it felt really good to know that we're writing Angerot riffs again. Because I don't know, let's say it's been a couple of years in between, I suppose, at least, before we kind of focused on it. Not that we weren't writing, but we weren't focused on the next project, since we already had 2 albums in the can, basically, or started, I should say.
Right. Right. So then it's, I think going with Into Divine, the success, and I don't even know if it's the success is the right word, but the enjoyment that we had on working with special guests and, seeing who we can get to be involved with these projects. And I think it's honestly one of my personal favorite things about this band as a whole is the connections we get to make, the people we get to work with. Our enjoyment together is we've been jamming together in some fashion since the early 90s. So, like working with each other is like, okay, see you Thursday. So to the excitement comes again, just, working with some of the people who, if it wasn't for them, you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Right. And that's easily the biggest question I've always gotten since we started this, since we put out the first record.
Who's
Is
next?
how are you getting these people to be on your records with you? And it's, well,
Charm and
we,
candy.
we ask. I don't know.
Like, please, and some good candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we're going into the twin albums. It was, we kind of, I thought we, personally on a personal level, kind of hit that great target coming right out of the gate to make that album, special to us. And then when you get into the second one, it's like, okay, now what? And then the third one, you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah, well, and I mean, we started kind of branching out with Divine too. Obviously, so like we said already, we had 2 albums worth of material. So now we have to pick through how do we want to distribute these songs per these 2 albums or whatever, and then start experimenting. And now there's a keyboard element.
Yeah.
Now there's the operatic element, and how do we want to do this?
In mentioning that, to me, I think that is probably, if not the single largest thing that we did between our debut album and our second album and third album, is really lifting that restrictive barrier from ourselves and saying, as long as it sounds right, then it's right. So if it's, opera vocals, or if it's, a piano solo or whatever, because there's a lot of elements on there that I don't even really think about them as isolated elements until you really think about how the records came together. And then you hear, we have a piano solo.
Yeah.
Like if you'd have told me that, like, one of these days your death metal band's gonna have a piano solo. It's just that it's like,
well, we made the slow transition from pure Swedish death metal to throwing in those, I don't know if you want to say black metal elements, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
More Demu style
influence, like
yeah.
You can't claim black metal unless it was
No.
recorded on a boombox,
right?
But it definitely has the influence and it has the
absolutely.
The vibe. So.
Let's just call it our version of a form of symphonic HM2 worship or something. We tried to change our tone with that album, but yeah, we moved into orchestration. We moved into female operatic vocals. We moved into clean male vocals with our good friend SnowyShaw.
I was going to say bringing Snowy in was
I mean, we went from basically none of that on the first album. I mean, we had a little bit of instrumental sections, but we didn't have, we went all to two new elements that we had, when we only had one album, but we'd never done before. And we consciously together, said, let's do this. Let's do what's best for the song. Let's explore. Let's see what we can come up with. And can't say I've been disappointed with anything we've done so far. I can tell you that.
How many reviews did we have where they mentioned the lady that does the opera at the beginning and the end, and then they threw her in the middle, to keep the continuity, and it's actually Snowy in the middle?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That lady's gonna be pissed.
Yep.
Yeah. But I agree. It really, I think it's boosted my confidence and, vocally to just try anything, like if, a lot of stuff I have it in my head and I hear a song coming together vocally as I'm writing it, and I have this, these grandiose ideas that I can do certain things. And then obviously I got to reel myself back in because I can't do all of that stuff, but and some of it opens to other guest ideas, like I hear this element, and I think that's where Snowy kind of came into it, is like, okay, this is kind of what I hear, and there's no way in hell I can accomplish this obtuse thing that I want, but it'd be perfect for this guest. And really it's like, someone like SnowyShaw, I never would expect to hear him on an album like that, but he fits in so well in that piece that it's like,
yeah,
there's a comment on our Bandcamp page that references Snowy. So, and I think the comment was, I don't know why this works because it shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's pretty much what we all thought when we got it back. It was like, yeah, I mean, we know what Snowy's capable of doing, but it just to a whole nother level. But and I know we've mentioned it in other interviews and stuff too, but really it's almost like every single guest that we've asked has pulled through in ways that we didn't. I mean, you always know what that person's capable of doing. Otherwise you wouldn't ask them to contribute, but sometimes it's like square peg round hole, right? When you're working with guests and you hear it on other people's albums and it's like, that dude's a good singer, but probably not on that music. And I think we've, maybe it's just because it's my ears, but I think most everyone who's contributed feels like they fell into that puzzle really well.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's because, I don't know how other bands work with features, or they specifically ask them to do something, whereas we're just like, hey,
here you go,
here's the timestamps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do whatever you want, or do whatever you want on the whole whatever.
Yeah, because like even Snowy on that track pretty much rearranged my vocals, and then there's a couple lines in there that I'm not even sure are mine, and I know like Tucker's real similar. Steve Tucker did and it's like, but it's the same thing when I talk to him. Just we're asking you because of how good you are at what you do.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. You just let them go.
Yeah.
And, for people that don't know, when we ask someone to guest on a song, there's probably a rough guideline that we mentioned, but outside of that, it's like you do as much on that song as you want to do.
Absolutely.
It's not like here's your 4 lines, go for it. Or here's, even guitar leads wise, with Andy, it was like, here's where we would like the lead to be, but there's still a 5-minute song that you can do whatever you want to. Absolutely. And he did. Yeah. And I think that adds to that continuity.
I don't think we've ever got anything back where we went, ooh, this isn't going to work. I mean, I don't remember that ever happening, so, but maybe let's maybe establish the fact that, on our first album, just to kind of clarify, kind of who we're referring to, because we obviously set the bar very high on our first album. We had some guy named LGPetrov from Entombed. Sure, everybody listening probably knows that name. So he was one on the first album, and then we had James Murphy on guest lead on a track on our very first album. Of course, everybody knows him from Death, Obituary, Cancer, Disincarnate. The list goes on and on. Testament. So and then moving into the Divine. The 3 that were on there, we've been talking about SnowyShaw, of course. He was on a track, and then Terrence Hobbs from Suffocation did a guest lead on Oh Son of the Morning, Oh Son of the Dawn, that track. And then the third one was Ben Ash, who was he was in Carcass for a little bit, and he's with Strigoi and Satyricon Live. So he did a lead on there as well. So that's the three guests that we had on the Divine Apostate. So
Yeah.
And
So,
it's
yeah.
still like, wow.
I know.
Just
I know.
listening to it, like, damn.
I know.
And what I remember from
Fuck.
Ben was we sent him a vinyl. He's over in the UK, and we sent him a vinyl. And I remember he did a live stream on Instagram, and he was so happy because he was on a vinyl. I think he said for the first time ever
Right.
in his career. I mean, I just named some bands that he's been in. Now he hasn't, I don't believe until Strigoi, he's been on any of those albums by those other bands. But that was a neat moment for him. So they've made our album spectacular, and it's bucket list items. And on the flip side, they've responded and said, wow, this is cool for them too. Like LG, right before he died, reposted the lyric video that we did, like literally the month before he died. And you talk about a humbling thing to experience as a musician, to have that guy repost that and just say, this is something that I did.
Yeah, that was special. I mean, tough time I think that was one of the things where you knew what was coming. I think everybody knew what was coming, and nobody wanted to admit what was coming.
Yeah.
And, so as usually, if it was me personally and I was getting down there, I would be in radio silence mode. Like I would just be with my friends, my family. And the last thing I'm going to do is post on social media how cool it was that I worked with this little band from South Dakota. But, I think it really meant a lot to us for sure. Like it was just one of those, damn, like what a good dude.
It's damn for another reason too, because that guy was 49 years old when he passed away. Right. I mean, I hate to say it, but we're a tiny bit older than that. So, I mean, it's, none of us are getting out of here live. So let's keep churning out some death metal.
Yeah. So after Divine, we actually did a second version of Divine.
We did.
How did that even come about? I don't even remember. We did an Inversus, which Inversus just means upside down. But I don't even know where that came from at that time. It just
was it because we were in between albums. We were going to do an EP. I think it was the original.
It was another failed EP.
Yeah. And you still had drum tracks of Josh doing a cover of Eaton.
Yeah,
that's what's on
from
Versus,
like
right?
Forever ago. Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we had some live audio that was pretty solid, or was that an afterthought? I can't even remember. That was like
that was good. That's the stuff Dale recorded.
Yeah,
at a CD release show or at something.
So we just thought it would be cool and I think I can't remember if we were sold out on CD.
No, we weren't. But I remember we approached Thomas about it from our label, Redefining Darkness Records, and I think the idea was to just do an alternate version of the Divine instead of doing a separate EP. Is my memory.
Sure.
So yeah, we did.
Because I think the original idea was to do an EP of covers.
Yeah. Well, and we did. There's remixes on there too, wasn't there?
There's 2 remixes of songs from the first album, Splendid Iniquity.
As much as I love that first album, leads to another thing that changed, moving from Splendid to Divine, and is switching producers.
Absolutely. I guess we have to call him the 4th member of Angerot now,
right?
he used to be the 5th member of Angerot. He's currently the 4th member.
Yeah. So hooking up with Andreas in Hop House Studios over the pond, as they say, and what a blessing. I mean, it's literally like finding, if you don't play in a band, it's hard to explain. If you play in a band, you 100% understand what I'm talking about. And that is just getting an engineer or producer to see what vision you're trying to verbalize, because it's really, really a hard translation to get through. And I really feel like with him, he makes us so much better at what we do.
For sure.
I mean, he brings out the best in everything that we are trying to accomplish. And it's been, on top of that, having such a great personality and ease to communicate with and work with.
Yeah.
And how did that come about again? Was it just the idea of you listening to being a fan of Beast?
Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think I just messaged him.
I
from
think
there.
I think I remember just discovering that video Beast for
Yeah.
Crosswar.
Yeah.
And I think I sent it to you, and then I think you ended up messaging them somehow. And I guess I like to explain it like this for maybe non-musician people. You know, when you're in a band, when you're playing live or recording, here's how I look at it. Any band is basically as good as their production, their sound crews, their sound man, whatever. You can have the best band in the world, but if you've got somebody turning the knobs that doesn't know what they're doing, and it's the same on an album. So Andreas has, you know, has the ability to do some amazing things with his amazing ear and what he's able to do. He understands our music completely, and I mean, he's definitely our fourth member, and we still work with him to this day. And we've done, well, we're for 3 Angerot albums and done some other projects with him as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's over in Denmark, Andreas Linneman, Hop House Studios. So we appreciate the hell right out of that guy.
Yeah. Like it's hard to, like you can't even express it enough, because we went when we decided to look for another producer. It was nothing against Skogsberg, right? But it was all about where we knew we were headed to. And I think it was more than what he can handle, because that's completely wrong, but more it's just out of his wheelhouse at that point.
Right. Well, just during the writing process, again, like we talked about, adding elements that weren't part of the first album or what we were trying to accomplish.
Everything was a bit more.
It's not going to sound right with that early Swedish sound.
Yep. And so we tried at least one other guy, and I want to, at least one other guy. And it's such a sinking feeling when you get a mix back and you're just like, no.
Yeah.
It was, I remember it being like nothing I wanted to pursue and hear, you know, when you work with somebody where you can get, the first draft back that's in the wheelhouse, because I mean, that's not easy to do. I mean, obviously we record ourselves as far as tracking. So it's up to us to track it as well as we can and get the sounds we want. But there's that back end element where, the mixing, the engineering, those people are I wouldn't say magicians, but they make it or break it, put it that way, in my opinion. Some of my favorite albums, I mean, I can tell you who mixed them.
Right.
I mean, I love the band Carcass, but I love Colin Richardson as a engineer. His sound sonically just kicked my ass.
You know, I think in that regard too, it's almost like a lost element in death metal now, because when you think of like the early 90s and into even into the 2000s, if you saw Scott Burns,
that's exactly what I was just going to bring.
Then you're like,
up.
oh, that's going to be a winner.
I used to literally buy albums if it had the RC logo and if I saw Scott's name on it.
Yeah,
I'm going to check this out. I don't care who it was.
There's a lot of good producers, but there's a lot of really mid stuff, where it's like, okay, well, it doesn't sound like shit, but it doesn't have that other personality,
right?
And it's funny because I've never really, I've thought about it, but not on that level. Like, how critical that energy is, when you hear it. And then, same stuff. Like if it comes out of Mana Studios, it's going to be good. And if, but it's kind of that lost thing now where I don't even know that anyone really looks at the liners until after on who produced what.
Yeah, I suppose because part of that's maybe it's developed in digital, I shouldn't call it DIY, because that's not really, it's just such a smaller scale. I mean, obviously you can do it, any band can record in their home with the right software, and any producer can probably mix and do things in their home too. So it's, I don't know if it's perceived differently or if there's just so many of them that, and some of the old ones aren't there anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we have what we have.
Right. Right. I know. And it's, it's just, it's hard at this point, imagine having to start that trek over again and try to, like, now that we're this far into it, this will in essence then be, well, the new record will be 4 if we've worked through all the,
Right.
so, but yeah.
Well, you can look at it as 5 since he did inverted or
Will it
whatever.
be Divine?
Yeah, he did Divine. He did the Profound Recreant. He did the Inversus
Versus.
mixes for all of that stuff, the live stuff, the
Yeah.
cover song, the 2 remixes. And then we'll get our upcoming album.
Yeah.
And then,
Is that what we call it now?
upcoming
upcoming
album.
album.
It has a name.
That thing that started as an EP.
We've said
Another
the name.
failed EP.
Yeah, we have 2 failed EP. It's
We
an
should just
EP
have that on the
twice.
back of the new shirts.
Yeah.
Another failed EP. I love that shit. Yep, I'm in.
Yeah.
Sephan, another failed EP.
Yeah. So it's been a weird transition after the Twins, it just and I think too leading to another big step in progression for us. So I know internally we're excited about that the most. Just how fresh this stuff feels. It's got that little bit more back to that raw roots vibe, which I love.
With Sephan?
Yeah.
I know we're here
The new
to
album.
celebrate the birthday of Divine. I just didn't know how deeply we wanted to jump into that or save that.
I think we, and maybe this is a good time to kind of mark on that too. Obviously I think we mentioned we moved on from a drummer again. So Matt has not been in the band for some time now. So we've been rolling as a trio, working with a lot of good help.
I was thinking about this today. Matt came in. We sent him through a crash course. He records 2 albums. And then what? A handful of shows?
Yeah.
Did we really have a full-time drummer throughout all of that?
No.
I mean, he was a member. But it's kind of been a
security,
trio.
The security blanket was there, but
right.
Yeah, I feel you.
And not that's not a down. I'm not putting anybody down.
Yeah.
I'm just was like the time spent. I mean, it's like we kind of.
So
been rolling that
I
way
think
for a
we
while.
save everything for SEO Fun and about the new record for the next episode.
Hey.
There's a lot to talk about and a lot to go over with the record that we have upcoming. It is just about ready to go through mix and stuff, and I think it deserves a little bit more time and full discussion to kind of explain.
Absolutely.
It's probably one of the most exciting projects that we've probably ever been involved with as far as that goes. The number of hands in the cookie jar in this project is,
We don't believe it's ever been done. Let's let that be a
Yeah.
tease.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it has.
Oh, well, I mean, people, if you're following us on social media, you know what's going on. So,
Yeah, but it's I think it deserves a conversation on its own. So yeah, I think that's pretty much my thoughts on that. I don't know if you got anything else you want to throw
let's
in
just
there,
do a
but-
quick.
Little
I
promo.
brought some stuff.
Oh yeah, we got some
so
visual.
since we're celebrating, and it is 5 years today that we're celebrating our sophomore album, The Divine
That's just
Apostate.
nuts.
So here it is, right here.
It's like all of a sudden your kid's 5 years old.
Right.
And this is it right here. Artwork by John Zig from Texas, who's actually done all 3 of our albums so far. The first 3, I should say. So yeah, this is it right here. We still got the vinyl version in I think 3 different colors. And then we have this cool thing that we did
Another
with
bucket
a
list thing.
picture disc. Look at that. And as you can see, turn it over and it's the Divine Apostate.
That's pretty radical.
So
I've always wanted to do a picture disc.
yeah. Didn't even break once it didn't crack when our faces got put on here.
No,
either. So,
and it's like the record you just hang on your wall. I remember when I was a kid, I had a Dio record, a picture disc, and I don't think I ever put it on my record player. I just put a nail in my wall and hung the record up. Like that's what that's good for.
and then we've got the CD version, of course, and then just so you know, we've got this is the Inversus alternate art version. So this is the Divine Apostate, and then it's got the extra tracks on here. Featuring 5 live songs, 2 remixes, and the Bloodbath cover of the song Eaten. So we have all this stuff available yet on our Angerot.com.
Yeah. It was a cool merch run.
Really was.
I mean, we had a lot of cool toys. I think we probably still have a few of them remaining in that store too. But
Mhm.
it's the one I can't remember. What I was talking to, I think it was Sean from Wise Blood, and we were talking. He's like, "Man, your merch game's always on point." and,
Yeah,
and
buddy.
it's, I think everything, and I probably will say this a million times as we go through everything and talk about each new project, is everything's just a bucket list for me.
Right.
You know, like everything when I was growing up as a kid, you know, it's like, yeah, someday I want that with my face or my name on it, you know, for one reason or another. And
Absolutely.
that's like the picture disc to me is that, like, when you're growing up, how dope are picture discs?
Well, right.
You know, so I was like, someday I gotta have one. I don't care how well or how poorly it sells, but I'm gonna have one. So
With the blood vinyl too.
yeah,
I mean,
oh,
that was
yeah.
fucking
I totally forgot about
tits
that.
right there, dude.
Yeah,
If anybody doesn't know, we actually released 14.
15.
Well, 15 were
14 or
made,
15.
yeah, something like that. I'm not sure.
and we took the first album, clear, or they were transparent white.
Yeah, clear vinyl. I think
But
we're just
Chad actually had blood extracted, and we found somebody who could put liquid, and then they forged the records together, so you have a liquid vinyl. But each one actually had Chad's blood in it.
It was the shadiest process in the whole wide world. So it's actually not legit to do for hazmat reasons or whatever, you know, with all my bloodborne diseases I have. But so I had to find what do they call them, a phlebotomist or whatever, like some form of a whatever. Anyways, and I'm not gonna name any names because it's gonna go down a weird rabbit hole here. But he had to actually lift products from his office to bring them home, where I met him at his house, where he then drew my blood there, which was not the best blood draw I've ever had in my entire life. I'll tell you that much. A lot of fishing around and whatever. But anyways, got it done. And then I had to, begging isn't the right word, but the guy who does the custom vinyl, and I can't remember the name of that guy, but seriously cool stuff, right? All, you know, all the suspended liquid in vinyl or whatever. And then I messaged him and told him what I wanted to do, and all I got back was what? WHA question mark. So I had to explain to him, like, no, I'm not just going to send it to you in a cup, you know, like it's all going to be legit or whatever. And he's like, well, let me think about it. And then I don't know what it was, like a week later or something like that. I was half debating on just like, do I even message this guy back, or does he think I'm just some kind of fucking nutcase? And then he messaged me and he's like, dude, I'll do it, but here's the kind of the stipulations that I need in order to do this, and here's what it's going to cost and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to lose my ass on this, and I'm going to fucking do it anyway, because it's the coolest shit. Like,
might be the most death metal thing ever done.
It might be.
You know, if you think about it.
It's got to be up there.
Has it been done before? Has anybody else put their own blood in a vinyl?
I don't think in
a
vinyl.
vinyl?
I don't know.
I mean, Kiss did it in the comic
You know
book.
what? Maybe I can't remember. I thought I maybe saw something online that somebody did something or whatever.
Maybe.
But, you know, there's that whole thing about Kiss and the vinyl, and then Joey Jordison and his blood drumsticks or whatever. But I think a lot of that's bullshit, if you ask me.
Because what was theirs? The blood was the ink in some of the comic books.
That was the Kiss thing. They put some of their blood in the ink to print the comic books in the 70s. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past them.
Well, I know mine was real because I felt it.
And I think might be video of it.
There is video of it.
Yep. So that was rad. I think
that was rad.
So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in to episode 1. Hopefully you enjoyed what you learned or didn't learn or whatnot. If you do have any questions that you want covered, just throw them in the comments and we will check them out. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. We will be having a lot of new content upcoming with the new records upcoming. You definitely don't want to miss out on some of the information and audio we've got upcoming. So
yeah, always hit up Angerot.com.
Hell yeah.
All right. Peace out, y'all.